Hello. On Wednesday, we left at 7 a.m., which was really 6 a.m. on our Malawi timescale. So we did really well. We headed straight for Mbeya, where once again it was the normal routine of ATMs, petrol, internet, cafes, etc. And then we headed east for Makambako, and then south for Songeya. We set up a bush camp before we reached Songeya, and it was 100 times better than last night's boggy camp. I made pumpkin soup, but what a challenge it was liquidizing it with a whisk by hand. Life in Africa was once again challenging. Today, we had driven through terrain much like Ashburton, South Africa, with thorn trees, etc. And then, as we had headed south, it was just like the Natal Midlands. Just when we think we have seen the absolute extremes with bicycle transportation, we enter a new country and we find a further extension to the simple bicycle. Today we saw guys transporting huge baskets of tomatoes on the back with an additional 50 kg bags of tomatoes strapped over the back wheel mudguards. Unbelievable. Taxis. Bicycles are used as taxis and for many other uses. Thursday, we drove down on a good tar road to Songeya. The tar roads in Tanzania were not full of potholes, so the going was quite rapid. We reached Songeya at 11:30 a.m. and stopped at a very colourful hotel with purple tables, turquoise chairs, and a huge display of animals in the front porch. There we had a drink before leaving for Namtumbo, and here our troubles started. First of all, it was a dirt road, and an appalling one at that. But half an hour into the trip, we came across a river with a bridge, and there in the river on the bridge was the 12-ton truck, loaded with 20 tons, and it had collapsed the bridge. 5 minutes before we got there. Luckily, a local Land Cruiser arrived, and he said he knew a way around. So off he led us at breakneck speed, him followed by us four, and we had picked up a local police van at the rear. I have no idea what the local villagers thought as we roared past, as they had probably never seen much traffic, and there we were, this armoured convoy going at a pace. Anyway, half an hour later we were back on the road and back to our slower pace. The road was so bad that our pace was 30 kilometers per hour. So of course it was a bush camp again. Friday, and on this day, Carmen Jo, our daughter, graduated with her BCom accounts, and she got her degree sum laude, coming in the top 3 in her whole class. We are so proud of her and are feeling quite homesick as we were unable to be with her. We just had a tedious day, grinding our way along this appalling road to Lindy at a rate of 25 kilometers per hour. Why were we doing this? During the day, we filled up our water tanks at a village water pump, and so that evening we were able to have a refreshing shower at our bush camp, which made us feel much better and able to take on the next day. Saturday, we proceeded on this laborious road and finally reached Tar at about 1 p.m. Hallelujah! Our average speed increased to 85 kilometers per hour, and we were soon on the Tanzanian coast at Lindi, which turned out to be overcrowded and not very pleasant. So we decided to proceed down to Mikandani to a lodge called 10 Degrees right on the bay. We had cold drinks and a delicious dinner of calamari and prawns, followed by a game of cards. A wonderful evening after a grueling 3 days of driving. Sunday morning, we were treated to toast, eggs, and coffee at 10 Degrees, and then we set off to look at the old Boma, which is an old fort built in 1895 overlooking Mikandani Bay. The walls were built with coral and coral lime mortar, a practice that is now banned as it raped the coral reefs, and in addition, the indigenous forests as they were used to fire the kiln to burn the coral. The fort has been restored to a comfortable hotel, but at $90 a night, we just had a morning visit. We traveled on to Mtware, where we stocked up with beer and visited the internet cafe. We were delighted to receive emails from our friends and family, and even from our mothers. This trip was making our grannies computer literate. We then drove around to Simbati Beach, which is in the Mnanzi Bay Marine Reserve, and we set up camp at Ravula Camp. We decided to spend 3 nights there as it was idyllic. First it was laundry, then we relaxed and had a drink on the beautiful beach that is literally dusted with gold flakes. We think it's mica in the sand. As the sun set, we were lolling in the flat water of the bay, which had virtually no waves at all. Dave cracked open a coconut that he found on the beach, and we drained the milk to make a most delicious Thai chicken curry for supper, a favorite meal of our daughter Carmen Jo. Monday morning, after early morning coffee, Dave and I set off on a long walk along the beach, equivalent to 1 hour on the treadmill. We were getting so unfit sitting in the car all day long. After breakfast, we went out on the boat to the Ravula Reefs to snorkel. The snorkeling was great and the visibility about 15 meters. We saw plenty of reef fish and corals. Because it is such a big bay, you have to be very careful of the riptide, and you can only safely dive when the tide is coming in, which unfortunately was at lunchtime, so we wore t-shirts to protect us against getting too sunburnt. We bought a rock cod from the locals for 29 Rand, and it was enough to feed all 8 of us for supper. Tuesday was just another day in paradise, fishing and snorkeling. Natural gas had been discovered on Msimbati Beach, and a Canadian firm was busy drilling for it. So far, they had sunk 3 holes, and the latest one was 2,800 meters deep. They were using the gas to drive gas turbines for power generation. Martin, the owner of 10 Degrees in Mikindani, where we had stayed, was a marine biologist, and he was employed by the Canadian company as their environmental officer. So he had told us all about it, but we also met the Canadians on the beach. When they first sink a hole, they burn a flare out of a chimney, which makes the noise of a jet plane, as the flame is about 30 meters high and even generates small clouds for 5 to 7 days. This process is used to determine the quality and the amount of gas found and to check the viability of mining it. So far, the gas that they have found has been a very good source, and they are expecting to be drilling in this area for a long time and to be able to electrify a large area of Tanzania with this natural gas. Wednesday, we traveled back to Mtwara. Most towns have a traffic circle or 2, and in Tanzania they are called keep lefties, which is quite a descriptive name. We spent 1 hour in the town and then headed north for Kilwa, which we thought was a 4-hour drive. But of course, we had forgotten about Tanzanian roads, and so 6 hours later we were still not there and were looking for a bush camp. Well, we found a huge quarry on the left-hand side of the road and worked our way off the road into this quarry and set up camp Mozambique style, because in Mozambique in 1997 we had always camped in quarries. Climbing up into the rooftop tent has become far less stressful for me, as I have finally taken the advice of all the other ladies on the trip and started using a potty. Never mind that the potty is a 2-liter ice cream tub. Actually, it works quite well because it has a lid. So at least now the nights don't seem quite so long. Thursday, and the beauty of waking up in a rooftop tent as the sun rises. We set off bright and early towards Kilwa, and it was a breeze as it was just such a good tar road, and we reached Kilwa around 9 a.m. Kilwa is made up of 3 towns. Kilwa itself means place of fish. Kilwa Kavinji means Kasorina tree and is on the mainland in the north and was prominent in the early 19th century as an Omani slave trading center. Kilwa Masoko means market and is also on the mainland but is further south. Kilwa Kisawani means island, and this town is on an island just 2 kilometers off the mainland. We headed for Kilwa Masoko and bought some supplies and then booked into a lodge called Kilwa Dreams, where the owner Patrick met us. He went out of his way to accommodate our every need, accompanying us into town to arrange the necessary permits for us to visit Kilwa Kisawani and organizing our dhow trip over to the island. All this despite it being a public holiday in Tanzania. He then came with us and acted as our tour guide. We spent 2 hours exploring Kilwa Kisawani, Kilwa Fort, and various mosques and tombs. Kilwa Kisawani rose to power in the 11th century, and by the 14th century its fame had spread across the ancient world as it traded gold with Renaissance Europe. However, Kilwa's greatest period of prosperity was short-lived as gold prices fluctuated. On the island today, majestic ruins of this once splendid city are all that remain. After our tour, we sailed back in our dhow and went back to our campsite where we relaxed and went out to their restaurant for dinner.
Please like and subscribe and hit the bell icon for notification of our next video.